So a bill has been introduced that would prevent hedge funds from owning single family homes in the United States. Do you think this will pass?
Absolutely not, but I love it. The idea. There's no way in hell. Shout out to Ross Mack, who was just with Ken Griffin the other night. Ken probably is going to build the biggest mega mansion in Miami, from what I'm hearing. I think real estate investment space and buying these up personally are not good for the average citizen. It's not going to be good for our debt to GDP ratio. It's not going to do good for like any consumer sentiment. But I kept saying, like, if the gains are magnificent seven, there's not enough money for every hedge fund to deploy capital there. And if you're going to like Russell 2000 stocks to outperform the market, your client may not like that. Go into real estate as a hedge. Talked about it at the event with JP Morgan, but people don't know Berkshire owns 14,000 doors quietly. So even if their portfolio in stocks goes down, people are going to have to still pay rent regardless. I understand why the hedge funds and fund of funds have went to the space, but they've driven the price up for the average consumer too much. I don't think the bill will be passed, but I think there does need to be provision to stop some of this from happening for sure. Like, we should not be competing against BlackRock, Blackstone, and Vanguard. Shout out to Vanguard, my family. I love y'all. If you're in the real estate business, they should not be your primary competitors. But it drives me back to my point. Everyone on earth is your competitor. You just don't know it yet.
The answer is 100% no, like you said. And it's a Democratic initiative. And we already know how this works. When it's Democratic, it's Republican. I mean, it's just a mess, right? So the bill's aim is to not only ban hedge funds from amassing large portfolios of single-family homes, but also to force them to sell off their portfolio. That's the other part of it, right?
Yeah.
So the bill will require hedge funds to sell at least 10% of the total number of single-family homes they currently own to families per year over a 10-year period. After the 10-year full phase is out, all hedge funds will be completely banned from owning any single-family homes. Even them selling 10%. I mean, what market price do they have to set for it? Does it make it more affordable now that they can sell them? Probably not. Probably not. And so, again, this is something on the premise, the idea of it, yeah, that makes sense, right? Like, for somebody that's trying to get their first home or somebody who's trying to get investment property, the average person, to compete with financial institutions that have billions, it's not It's not a fair playing ground. So yeah, maybe some legislation, but this ban, I can't see it happening.
Going back to there's no democracy. If we were living in a true democratic state, we would never have monarchs of the United States be able to do this.
Right, like you're trying to buy a home and they're trying to buy your neighborhood. It's a totally different playing field.
Yes.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why the real estate market has not really, crashed, and that's one of the reasons why housing is becoming more and more unaffordable. Rents are going up, and it's going to be an interesting stay. I think at some point in time you have to have some legislation that's put in place, because if not, then every single home in America will be owned by a hedge fund or a major financial institution, and everybody's going to be forced to be a renter anyway.
Yeah.
There's a shortage of homes on the market in a variety of different places in America, which is also causing home prices to go up.
Great point.
So, being that there's not enough homes actually on the market, there's a housing crisis currently.
That's a fact.
There's already a housing crisis. People saying like that there's going to be a housing crisis coming, but there's already a housing crisis. And there's if you graduated college, you're 25 years old, like where are you going to live? If you live in any metropolitan area, like how are you going to live?
So here's the question, because I'm glad you said that. That's an excellent point. I was just doing the research on this. There is a housing crisis, and there potentially could be people are actually finding out that the government of the United States and a lot of financial institutions are encouraging underbuilding, right? So if you underbuild, that means there will be less homes, which means that now those homes that are in existence, I can now raise the price on. So if a hedge fund is owning, let's say 14,000 homes and it's underbuilding happening, those 14,000 homes are going to increase over time, 15, 20 years. Right, so this is like a real thing that people are not paying attention to.
Y'all better go to Gravedigger Mountain with NBA YoungBoy, or Wyoming, or Ohio, Iowa, Nebraska. Y'all gonna have to hit some of these places that are not as popular. Like even finding locations for what's next. So like in 14 when I made the decision to move to Houston, low state income tax, business was booming. Now Mexico, now you guys in UAE, you got to make my way there. Like you are always going to have to find what's the next point to skate to. And keep investing. This is another reason I say. So you're not going to buy a house. You're not going to buy crypto. You're not going to buy stocks. You're not going to buy business. You're going to make a podcast and your podcast is going to fail. Man, invest in what's working. Everybody put it in chat, man. Investing is so simple. It's the easiest thing on earth to do. If the rent market, like the reason the housing prices will never drop is because so many businesses and hedge funds are in it. They have to set a level for a true support level for institutional buy-in. And even if those hedge funds sell off 10%, they aren't going to do anything but make another company that's not tied to them to buy the properties back and sell them at profit. Like, or Blackstone to sell to BlackRock. Okay. So wicked game. But what can you do?
What happens to the other 90% though, right? If the mandate is they have to send at least 10%, what happens to the other 90?
Oh, well, that's where the lobbying power comes in.
Like, okay, I'll sell 10%. Okay.
Yeah. Money to get power, power to protect the money. The Medici family rule.
Money makes the world go round. That's a
absolutely
fact. Okay. So one last thing before we bring our guest on, let's talk about regulators caught Wells Fargo and other banks in a probe over mortgage pricing discrimination, staying in line with the real estate conversation. What are your thoughts, and what changes will come as a result of this?
I want to ask an honest question. How is Wells Fargo still in business? Like they are operating like Omar from The Wire for the last 15 years. Shout out to Wells Fargo. I don't want any drama, yada, yada. Let's put on my cape. But how are they still in business? Now, if you go look at the origin of Wells Fargo, how they began, go Google who is their founder and how did the company come about. They've had a nefarious history since the founding of the company. But do I think changes will be brought about? No, every bank discriminates. But they seem to be a little bit more egregious in their discrimination and opening accounts and opening up credit cards. And I'm even hearing stories of home equity lines of credit being opened up allegedly for people that have passed. So this is one of the reasons I've never liked the stock. Don't like the way the company's been ran. Those of you who work there, I know these issues were forced upon you. So I'm not casting any aspersions about your character if you work there, but I have no clue how Wells Fargo is still in existence after all the bullshit they've done the last 15, 20 years. That is public. Like, if this is known about publicly, what is happening that we don't know about?
A whole lot.
Like, could you imagine how much trouble we would get in if we just, everybody on YouTube, we open up a Red Panda and the EYLU account and charge them for it? We would have been screaming the Fat Joe thing. Please don't. Please don't.
Please
don't.
Please don't. No,
please don't.
Please don't.
What? How are you getting away with this for this long?
Please don't.
Shout out to Joe Crack. Great rebrand too. That's when you know the money coming in. When you take away the hood tails, like no, those weren't true. Those were not true at all.
Yeah, man.
Gotcha.
Allegedly. I mean, the stories of Wells Fargo have been well documented, especially over the past 2 years. I mean, this is national news, man. Yes. National news. We've spoken about it. We've had Matt, and he came on and he spoke about it from that standpoint. I mean, what do we expect change? That would be the real question. Do we expect change?
No.
Right? Like there'll be a racial and inclusion division that'll be added. There'll be some programs that are allocated for people of color. Like, yeah, that'll be the change.